Esther Gold loved Halloween. Maybe you love Halloween. Maybe you dress up every year and put a lot of time and care into your costume. Maybe you watch scary movies and then can't sleep but also can't resist watching more. Maybe candy corn tastes better to you than other candy. Not because it tastes better, it doesn't. But because it tastes like a moment in time, like a season. But you don't love Halloween the way Esther did.
Well, hi there, y'all. Welcome back to the Horror Diner, special Halloween edition. Ooh. If you've dined with us before, welcome back. It's so good to see you again. We made sure to leave your favorite booth open just for you. But if this is your first time joining us, howdy! I'm Spooky Pie, your waitress, your chef, and your new friend who's going to sit down and talk about horror with you. Here at the Horror Diner, we talk about all forms of horror media, from books to movies, podcasts, TV shows, video games. If it's horror, we're going to talk about it. But that's not all. We're also going to cook something up that goes with that piece of media we're talking about. Now, not everything we cover features a dish in it or has a clear theme that translates easily to food, so some dishes might end up being a bit more of a stretch than others, but we're going to do our best. You might notice things are looking a little extra festive around here, and why wouldn't they be? It's the best time of the year, the spooky time. My time. Besides, what kind of a horror diner would I be running if I just let the best holiday of all just pass on by without doing something about it? A lousy one, that's what. I'm sure it comes as no surprise to you that a girl running a channel called The Horror Diner loves Halloween, but I do. It's always been my favorite holiday. Horror is accepted and even celebrated with things like haunt mazes. There's all kinds of cute spooky merch. You get to dress up in fun costumes and not have people think you're weird. And not just that, you get candy for it. Halloween is amazing. Christmas who? Halloween is what we care about in this house, or diner, whatever. That being said, I figured it was only appropriate to cover a piece of media that loves and celebrates Halloween as much as I do. So for our 5th trip to the Horror Diner, we'll be covering The Halloween Moon by Joseph Fink. That name might sound familiar to you, and if it does, it's because he's one of the creators of Welcome to Night Vale, and as I mentioned in one of my earlier videos, I am a Night Vale girly through and through. So, back in the day when I heard that he was writing a middle grade horror novel, I was really excited. Now, I know, middle grade horror gets a lot of flack for being kid stuff, but I'm sure for plenty of us, middle grade horror was our gateway into the spookier stuff. Maybe you read Goosebumps or watched Are You Afraid of the Dark? We all start somewhere. For my money, there's a lot of good and creative work coming out of that category of horror these days, and as I'll discuss later, middle grade horror is actually really important as a subgenre. And this book is such a love letter to Halloween. We have a protagonist whose whole personality is basically Halloween, and whose coming-of-age narrative is entrenched in the holiday. Basically, it's fun, and it's a perfect read for this time of year. But before we get too into the weeds of the Halloween moon, let's head over to the kitchen and get you something to eat.
Now, in the Halloween moon, I did run into the issue that the only food that's talked about at all in the book is Halloween candy. So doing something that incorporated candy seemed the way to go. And if there's one candy that is synonymous with Halloween, it's candy corn. I know people have divisive opinions on candy corn, and I do not care. I like candy corn. We're going to make candy corn cookies, and they are going to be adorable. Let's get cooking. You will need 1 egg and 1 egg yolk, 2 teaspoons cornstarch, 3/4 cups white chocolate chips, 3/4 cups unsalted butter melted, but shown here whole because of aesthetics. Listen, I've gotten some comments about wanting to see the melted butter. Absolutely not. Melted butter pictures are for perverts, patrons of $10 a month or more. Moving on next, you'll need 1 teaspoon baking soda, 3/4 cups light brown sugar, 1/2 teaspoon salt, 1/4 cup sugar, 2 1/4 cups flour, 2 teaspoons vanilla extract. Mine was made by my dad, and I think that's neat. And of course, 2/3 cup candy corn. If you're a vegetarian like me, make sure to check that the candy corn you get is made with egg whites and not gelatin. Now that you have all your ingredients, let's get into it. Ignore the fact that I changed mixing bowls. I thought I was going to need my stand mixer. I did not, in fact, need my stand mixer. Anyway, get a large mixing bowl and add your melted butter, regular sugar, and brown sugar. Whisk those together until they're combined. Next, add in your eggs and vanilla. Go ahead and whisk those in too until everything is looking smooth. Now, in a medium bowl, combine your flour, cornstarch, baking soda, and salt. Make sure that's all mixed together. Yes, I am using a knife. Don't worry about it. No body, no crime. Add the flour mixture to your butter mixture in 2 parts, stirring with a spatula after you add each part until combined. Make sure to consult with your night manager on how you're doing. You may have to explain to him that white chocolate chips are not treats, and in fact, are bad for him. He won't believe you, but don't give in to that face. Anyway, go ahead and add those white chocolate chips that are only treats for people into your batter, and stir until they are combined. Night Manager Salem has opinions on the chocolate chips not being for him, and has decided to sow chaos, despite my faithful editor actually giving him treats he could eat. He's an artist, subject to moods. Once that's looking all good and combined, cover your bowl in plastic wrap and let it chill for at least 2 hours. In my case, it's overnight because I need to get to Halloween Horror Nights.
1 day later.
We're back, in a different outfit. Getting back into it, preheat your oven to 350 degrees and line 2 baking sheets with parchment paper. Using a 2 tablespoon cookie scoop, scoop the cookies onto the baking sheets, placing them about 1.5 inches apart. Y'all, buy a good cookie scoop. I did not do that. The stupid thing broke almost immediately, because to live is to suffer. Ain't that just the way?
Ain't that just the way?
No worries though, we can adapt. After you've adapted to the misery life has decided to hand you, keep scooping the cookies until you've filled both baking sheets. Look at those little cuties. Pop them in your oven and let them cook 11 to 13 minutes or until the edges are brown and crispy. Looks like they're done. Take them out of your oven and immediately place 3 candy corn pieces on top of each cookie. Give them a little push to make sure they're good and on there. Let them hang out on the cookie sheet for 5 minutes to cool down a bit, and then transfer them to a wire rack to cool completely. How cute do these look? While we're waiting for them to cool down, let's head over to my office.
This is probably the least colorful thing you're ever going to see me in. But hey, check it out. I decorated for Halloween. You might be going, hey Spooky, isn't your set kind of always decorated for Halloween? I mean, yeah, you're not wrong, but it's more festive now. Look at it, it's like got lights and stuff. Anyway, you're right. We're here to talk about the book. So, about the book. You can fit so much Halloween in this baby. Not only is Halloween used as an allegory throughout the book, which we'll get into later, but there are so many little nods in there, which is a good segue to welcome you to my tabbing system. Those of you who are part of the Horror Diner Book Club on Patreon will have seen me go through this before, but most of you haven't, so I'll give you a quick overview. I also want to briefly shout out Plant-Based Bride, who has some really good videos on annotating books to better engage with the content. I'll link the one I worked off of in the description. So here on the first page, I have my key with my tabs and what they mean. I have tabs for plot points, quotes, notes/questions, and horror movie and trope references. Also, sorry, but I need validation, so please take a moment and look at how pleasing this looks. I only used autumny colors for everything. And don't worry, if you're someone who's freaked out by the idea of writing in books, I am too. That's why I use clear sticky notes. So afterwards I can yank them out, my book's good. Yay. But enough about my annotation system. We're here to talk about the book with all these pretty little colored flags in it. But before I can get in and talk about the themes and thoughts, we have to talk about the plot. I will be spoiling the entire book, so please feel free to skip to the timestamp below. For everyone else who is still here, let's go. We open on a peculiarities museum, which is really just one man's private collection of various weird items that he's obtained through varying levels of legality. So it's not really open to the public, other than people who are just there to bring him his weird curios and his extensive security team. So of course, James Bennington, the owner, is surprised when someone is knocking on his door. This is what he has security guards for, after all, and one of them should have stopped this person from getting close enough to even knock on the door, and yet here someone is, knocking on his door. James does what I, and many other sane people would do, and tells the person to get lost. And of course, they don't, or we wouldn't have a story.
That's not very welcoming at all, a voice from close behind him said. He screamed and whirled around. There was a man wearing a uniform like an old-fashioned diner waiter. Black pants and white shirt, and a white paper hat. Every part of his outfit was perfectly pressed and neatly maintained. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you," the man said. He smiled a warm and utterly false smile. "It's only that no one was answering my knocking." James heard a skittering sound, like a swarm of insects. And was that a child who just ran down the hallway behind the man? It had looked like a child. No children had ever been allowed in the museum. No one is on their way, Mr. Bennington. Are they? The man said. He didn't come any closer, leaning on the mantelpiece of one of the house's 8 fireplaces. And you are fine. You are totally fine. We merely need one item from your collection. My collection is not for sale. The man's smile got wider, hungrier. We aren't buying. This time, 3 children most definitely ran down the hall. They were wearing ragged and dirty Halloween costumes, although it wouldn't be Halloween for another 3 weeks.
So this doesn't go well for James. He threatens to call the police, which they both know he won't do due to the legality of his collection. The paper hat man, a strange woman who's appeared out of nowhere, and the filthy army of kids ransack the place, leaving destruction in their wake before leaving with a trinket that James thinks is pretty inconsequential. But anyway, they leave the place a mess, and that's when he hears police sirens coming to investigate the break-in to his house of stolen items. Oopsie daisy. Now we get going for real, because we meet our protagonist, Esther Gold. Esther adores Halloween. It's her favorite thing ever. She recently turned 13 and had a Halloween-themed bat mitzvah. It's at this affirmation bat mitzvah that her father brings up to her that this rite of passage means she's an adult now, and that adults don't go trick-or-treating. But Esther blows this off. She'll stop trick-or-treating next year, or maybe the year after that. Whatever. We catch up with Esther walking home from school. It's her last year of middle school. We get an overview of the neighborhood and her quirky neighbors. One of which is a man who washes his car constantly, as well as the sidewalk in front of his house, even though this book takes place in Southern California. And as anyone who lives in or has been to Southern California knows, it's been in a drought for basically ever, which drives Esther's dad insane. One time, he apparently did this after a rainstorm, giving us a part that has no bearing on the story, but just made me laugh, so I'm telling you about it.
That time, Esther's father had been too angry to even speak. He said to Esther, waving his hand. Well, he had said, and then he had gone to take a nap. Sometimes when Esther's father got too frustrated, he would just take a nap.
Which, damn, he's just like me for real, though. I take a lot of naps. But that's neither here nor there. Like I said, I just think it's funny. It also reminds you, oh yeah, this is one of the guys that writes Night Vale.
Sunday afternoon on the Great Lawn near City Hall is the annual Children's Fair. There will be face painting booths, street food, balloon animals, real animals, hungry animals, feral wild animals that fear no humans. Children and adults are prohibited from attending until they get all of these animals under control.
So we also get a quick intro to the other neighbor of note in the neighborhood, Mr. Gabler. He's a dentist, and he gives out toothbrushes and toothpaste on Halloween, which is a huge point of contention with Esther. Even if he seems like a nice enough man, he is on thin ice. So today is basically a day like any other day, with Esther walking home. Right up until it isn't.
As she reached her corner, she heard strange music in the air. She had never heard music like it before. It was the warbling chime of an ice cream truck, but the melody wasn't any of the happy and annoying melodies those trucks usually blared. Instead, the music sounded sad, or even angry. The song was complex and long, and a little off-key. It was the music an ice cream truck would play at a funeral. The source of the music came trundling out of the cul-de-sac with worn tires and a hood belching puffs of black smoke. The ice cream truck, if that's what it was filthy, and along the side of the truck there was the faded image of a jack-o'-lantern, drawn so crudely that it barely resembled any jack-o'-lantern she'd ever seen. In chipped and badly applied type around the jack-o'-lantern were the words, "Queen of Halloween Pumpkins. Get yours while they last."
So that's weird, right? But Esther doesn't have time for that. Halloween is practically here, and she has a million things to do because Esther Gold takes Halloween very, very seriously. Like, Halloween is tomorrow, it's crunch time. When she gets home, it's not so great. Her parents say they need to talk, which is never good, and this is when they drop the bomb that they think she is too old and that she is not going trick-or-treating. Esther is furious. Halloween and trick-or-treating specifically are her favorite things. She tries to finagle an extra year out of her parents, saying next year, for real, she'll stop. They don't go for it, and it doesn't go well, and there's a lot of yelling, mostly on Esther's part.
This There's no need to argue, parents just don't understand.
But Esther is smart, and like all smart kids know, the way to get what you want is to make your parents think that you're going to do what they want you to do, and then as soon as you get them placated, you go and do whatever the hell you want. Listen to Aunt Spooky, kids. Damn the establishment. Fight the man. Rise up against your oppressors. Said by a childless millennial. Also, my parents watch this channel. Hi, Mom and Dad. I never did anything bad as a teenager and was always very well behaved. Also, college. I was very well behaved in college. Anyway. In an attempt to placate Esther, who was already thinking 10 steps ahead, her parents suggest that instead of trick-or-treating, she join her best friend Augustin and his mother on their annual trip to the movies for Halloween. Augustin, despite being Esther's best friend, is not a Halloween person. He doesn't even like Halloween, which makes him perfect for her plan. So Esther calls him up and tells him that she's coming over to discuss her plans. But as she's getting ready to go, she looks out the window and sees a group of trick-or-treaters shambling down her street, which is weird for a few reasons. The first, they seem pretty young and there is no adult with them. Second, Halloween is tomorrow. And third, their costumes are torn and filthy. She can't get a good look at their faces since they seem to be obscured with shadow, even though no shadows should be cast at that angle. And she thinks this is weird and creepy, because it is, but they go on their way and Esther books it to Augustin's place. Her very cunning plan, that anyone probably could have seen coming, is three-part. First, she lies and says she is going to the movies with Augustin and his mom, even though she is absolutely not. Second, Augustin hangs out with her instead of going to the movies with his mom. And third, he goes trick-or-treating with her even though he hates Halloween, because trick-or-treating needs company. He hems and haws at first about the whole thing because he does not like Halloween, but he does like Esther. And she kind of likes him too, but neither of them have figured that out yet. And he eventually caves and agrees to go trick-or-treating with her, and even dress up in a costume that she's going to steal for him from her older brother's closet. So she's got it all figured out. She's gonna do it. She's gonna save Halloween. Esther has just finished her for-school Halloween costume. She usually has 3 for throughout the day. And she goes to talk to her father, who she is absolutely not going to try and trick and will definitely be doing exactly what she told him she would be. Basically, to convince him that she's super sorry for yelling and is totally gonna behave. But when she's talking to him, he points out that out the window is another one of those weird ice cream trucks, but this one's claiming to sell apples instead of pumpkins, with a big picture of what looks like a poison apple on the side of the truck. Her dad wants to check it out, even though Esther's like, "No way, man, that's weird." But Mr. Gold is not to be curtailed, and he goes to check out the weird fruit truck. A young man in a crisp paper hat tells him that they are not ready to sell apples at the moment. They won't be ready until tomorrow, Halloween, and introduces himself as Dan Appel. Esther asks about the weird pumpkin truck she saw earlier, which she says belongs to his brother, Ed Pumpkin. Esther is 13 and is like, "Wow, if you guys are brothers, why are your last names different?" And he stops short of pulling a Homer Simpson.
Are you little?
And ominously says he'll keep an eye out for her tomorrow, which will definitely be completely fine. But as Esther is trying to sleep that night, she hears the pumpkin truck rattling down the road again, and looks outside to see a bunch of the filthy trick-or-treat children running information after it like this is weapons or something.
A long shadow unwound itself, covering the whole of the street. The source of the shadow was out of view of her window. Ed slowed his truck to a groaning halt. He got out of the truck, wiping at his grease-stained uniform. His paper hat had fallen, crumpled on the floor by the driver's seat, and his hair hung over his face. He walked slowly towards the source of the shadow, and the children in costume followed him. Then he stopped and got down on his knees, right in the middle of the street. The children did the same. He and the trick-or-treaters bowed, pressing their foreheads to the asphalt. What were they bowing to? "Your Highness," he said, "all is prepared." The children, also back up on their knees, made a buzzing, clicking sound, like insects. "Great," said a commanding voice from outside Esther's view. "I tell you what, that is absolutely fantastic. Just great work from all of you."
Esther somehow eventually falls asleep after witnessing this. The next morning is Halloween, and Esther heads off to school in her for-school Halloween costume. We are then introduced to her nemesis since childhood, Sasha Min. At this point, Sasha and Esther don't even know or remember why they hate each other, but that's just kind of how things go. Esther wins Best Halloween Costume at her school, like she usually does. But when she goes to accept her award, she notices a strange woman in the crowd. She's dressed in what looks like authentic Victorian clothing. Also, the woman is levitating. Just normal things. But when Esther turns away for a second to grab her award, the woman is gone. After school and on their way to absolutely obeying their parents, Esther and Augustine cross paths with Mr. Nathaniel, the man who waters his sidewalk. He warns them to stay inside tonight because there's a Halloween moon, hey, that's the name of the book, out tonight. He also says she'll be out tonight. He does not elaborate on who she is, and Esther and Augustine just chalk this up to him being a weird old man who waters the sidewalk in rainstorms. But that's just the beginning of the weirdness. As they go trick-or-treating, most of the houses have their lights off and no one answers the door. After several tries, they finally ring the doorbell on a house that does open up, but the woman who answers is very sleepy, telling them that they're probably her last trick-or-treaters of the night, which is weird because it's still pretty early. As they keep going, it's more of the same. Most houses are dark, and when someone does answer, they're on the verge of falling asleep. One even just says that she's going to bed and closes the door on them.
"What is going on?" Esther said. "Come on, Est, can we go home now?" He pulled out his cell phone. Esther looked around. Between the street lights and the big orange moon, the street was nearly bright as day. So where were all the trick-or-treaters? Sure, the little kids would be done already, but where were the older kids? She wasn't the only one still going out. The street should have had plenty of people, but they were alone, other than a few groups in the distance that all seemed to be hurrying head down rather than stopping at the houses. "Gus, something isn't right. Augustine, where are the other kids?" He looked around. They're just... I don't know," he frowned. "That is weird. Where are the other kids? And why isn't anyone answering their door?" Esther could see the last 20 minutes finally sinking in with him. "This is definitely weird. Maybe I should try my mom again." Down the street she caught movement, a white flash. She squinted against the brightness of the street lights and recognized the Apple truck, slowly cruising toward them down the empty streets.
This thing's really hot. And I think I have it backwards? How witch hat work? It's really hot in here, and this hat is making my head way too hot. Also, it's blocking a bunch of my decorations, and I worked really hard on them. Look everyone, the most handsome boy in the entire world is here. They absolutely beat Cheeks out of there and are looking for anywhere they can find help. They make their way to the one house that goes super all out for Halloween each year, with an elaborate maze up front for the kids leading up to the front door. And then on the inside, an annual Halloween party for the adults. So that's great, right? A whole house full of adults. Someone in there is going to be able to help. But they get there, and no one is manning the maze, and no one is manning the trick-or-treat bowl. And inside the house where the party should be happening, there's just a bunch of adults sprawled out asleep, surrounded by solo cups and cupcakes. So Esther and Gus finally come to the conclusion that, okay, maybe this is a bit too much for them to handle, and whatever if they get in trouble for lying to their parents. Things have gotten very out of hand. So they call 911, and no one picks up. It just rings and rings. 911 isn't working. They're freaking out and thinking things can't get any worse, and then, of course, they do. Because Dan Appel pulls up in his creepy ice cream apple truck. He reintroduces himself, and Esther's like, "Yeah, I know who you are," because kinda hard to forget a name like Dan Appel, especially if you drive a potentially haunted ice cream apple truck around. Dan is just all around passive-aggressively menacing and saying things like, "Oh, it looks like you guys are disturbing these fine people who are just trying to sleep." Esther is spunky though, and she demands to know if he's behind the whole thing. And Dan is like, "Who, me? Goodness no. But I totally know who is, and they're only getting warmed up, so run home and check on your parents. It's gonna be a long night." So even though this guy is incredibly shifty, they do that. Because as much as Esther is mad at her parents about the whole trick-or-treating thing, she still loves them and she's worried about them. But at Esther's house, it's more of the same. Her parents are out cold, and no amount of trying can wake them up. And Gus's mom isn't picking up her phone either, so presumably it's the same scenario over at his house. Which is when Esther realizes that her toddler sister Sharon is gone, and her older teen brother is out doing God knows what, but more importantly, Sharon is gone. And then to top things off, there's a knock at the door. It's one of the creepy trick-or-treating kids in a dirty dinosaur costume. They don't say anything, they just kind of stand there and buzz. Esther and Gus are appropriately freaked out and are about to slam the door in the weird kid's face, except they hear someone yelling from down the street. It sounds like a kid about their age, and it is. It's Sasha Min, Esther Gould's mortal nemesis. Her mother is flat asleep in the driver's seat of her car, and like the other adults they've encountered, she isn't waking up either. There's a whole kerfuffle, because obviously these kids need to team up. Who else is going to be our scrappy group of underdog heroes? But two of the scrappy underdog heroes hate each other. So there's a lot of very loud animosity between Sasha and Esther, so loud in fact that it causes an adult, a completely awake adult, to open their front door and ask what the matter is. It's Mr. Gabler, the dentist who hands out toothbrushes instead of Halloween candy. He invites them inside his house, asking if they keep it down because, of course, his wife is sleeping. He doesn't buy their story at all because it wouldn't be a middle-grade horror if an adult immediately believed a child protagonist. So he's going to march them back to their homes and have a good long talk with their respective parents about the hijinks their kids are getting up to. But of course, this doesn't work. They don't get to their parents' house because en route, they come upon two strange ice cream trucks traveling down the road. Mr. Gabler has been trying to call 911. Yes, they told him it doesn't work. Well, they've been walking and hasn't seen these guys before, so he thinks it's a totally okay idea to approach them and ask if they have a cell phone he can borrow, because clearly the issue is his phone, and not like the kids have been saying something is wrong and 911 isn't picking up. Dan and Ed at first play along with the whole facade, acting innocent and being like, "Oh dear me, we don't seem to have phones." But Dan turns threatening again quickly. He coyly says he can help Mr. Gabler deal with the children. He tells them that these children are rotten and disobedient. You see, they really should have gone home when he told them to. You see, it's getting late, and it's going to stay late. And also, Mr. Gabler, you really should have stayed in and had a little lie down and just dreamed like all the other adults were doing. But Dan says that's okay, they've always got a backup plan for things like this, which is when he reaches into his truck and pulls out an apple that sprouts razor blades. I'm pretty sure this is a reference to the old urban legend about trick-or-treaters being given apples with razor blades hidden in them, so good Halloween lore nod there. Dan starts lobbing razor blade apples, so the group books it, heading back towards Mr. Gabler's house. The weird Truck brothers are hot on their tails, which is when we learn that while Dan has apples with razor blades, Ed has pumpkins that light on fire. They manage to make it through a barrage of sharp apples and flaming pumpkins and weird trucks and get back to Mr. Gabler's house, where they block the doors and windows as much as they can and hunker down. Their only real plan being to see what the Weird brothers do next, because what else are you supposed to do in this kind of situation? While they're in hiding, Esther manages to pull Gus aside to talk to him alone. Gus brings up that the moon is in the exact same place that it was when the night started. It hasn't moved. Time hasn't passed. At all. All this talk of the passage or lack thereof of time leads to them having an introspective conversation about the future, high school, etc. Gus thinks it sounds exciting. He can't wait to see what the future holds and to grow up and have adult experiences. Esther is less sure. Change is scary. Getting older and everything becoming different doesn't sound so great to her.
She frowned. People say that the future is what you make of it, but I don't think that's true. I think it just comes, and maybe you get some choices, but above all, the future is change. You can't control change. Man, he turned to face her. You're really freaked out about getting older, huh? She turned to face him too. I guess I just see how getting older works with my brother and my parents and my Grandma Debbie. Each year, everything becomes more complicated and less easy.
This introduces a major theme that we'll talk about later, so put a pin in that. Esther and Gus have a little bit of a moment here because, like I mentioned at the beginning, they both definitely like each other and neither of them has any idea what to do with that.
Is this a kissing book?
But they don't have too long to ruminate on early teenage love because the window explodes and one of the trick-or-treaters dressed in a stained ghost costume comes barreling in, making his weird insect noises. They get downstairs to where Sasha and Mr. Gabler are, but trick-or-treaters are swarming into the house. Some are coming down the chimney, it's madness. Mr. Gabler attempts to protect the kids, but another window is broken and he is dragged outside by more trick-or-treaters. The kids retreat back upstairs, even though Esther, as a devout horror movie watcher, knows this is a terrible idea. But what else are they gonna do? The little gremlins have the exits blocked. They lock themselves in the upstairs bedroom, and they're sure they're done for, because the trick-or-treaters have broken down the door and there is literally nowhere to run. Which is when Mr. Gabler crawls in through the second floor window with a knife in his teeth and throws himself at the trick-or-treaters. He has twisted his ankle in the process, but it doesn't stop him from being actually pretty cool. The kids are all bamboozled as to how he did this, to which he utters what will become his catchphrase of the book, "I wasn't always a dentist." But they don't have long to revel in how cool Mr. Gabler might actually be before it becomes evident that the Truck brothers have found the house and it is actively under attack. The four of them manage to escape out of the house and make it as far as Mr. Nathaniel, the weird man who waters his sidewalks, house, where they are intercepted by a tall, regally dressed woman flanked by a small army of dirty trick-or-treaters, who introduces herself as the Queen of Halloween. The Queen of Halloween takes this opportunity to do her villain's monologue because all good villains have one. She tells them that it's going to be Halloween night forever, she's made sure of it. As long as the Halloween moon is up in the sky unmoving, the night won't end, and that all the adults will stay asleep and her creatures will have free reign. All this hubbub has drawn ultimate old man Mr. Nathaniel out of his house. Somehow he's not asleep like the other adults, and he wants these people off his damn lawn. He tells the Truck Brothers and the Queen as much before he just starts blasting people with his hose.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang!
The Queen is terrified of the water and tells him she didn't know he was here or she wouldn't have chosen this place, but to just stay out of her way. He says that he moved to this neighborhood for peace and quiet, and by God, that's what he'll have. And he runs the Halloween people off the property with his hose that they are all afraid of for some reason. Mr. Nathaniel then tells the remaining non-Halloween people that they aren't nearly afraid enough of what's going on and that they should be concerned about time stopping, and more importantly, to run. They do, but as they are running, Esther makes the important realization that the water from the hose was seawater. This will come up later. As they travel on Mr. Gabler, the kids ask him just what in the world he meant by "I wasn't always a dentist," being his explanation for doing anything badass. And he admits to them that in the past he had a job he wasn't proud of. He used to get paid to steal things, but ironically, the man who used to pay him to steal things got robbed just last month and then sent to jail when the police discovered how many things in his home were actually stolen. Obviously, this is in reference to the man in the book's introduction. They're all kind of at a loss for what to do now. Other than Mr. Nathaniel, who clearly wants no part in this, Mr. Gabler is the only awake adult, and they all seem to be very on their own. The Truck Brothers are circling the streets, clearly looking for the gang. Esther and Sasha have some time to talk and clear up some of the years of animosity between the two of them. And everyone agrees the best plan they have is to head to the hospital, because Mr. Gabler says that the police are absolutely out of the question, because he is an A-cabbed king. But something's wrong. Landscape is changing, and as they're trying to get to the hospital, trees and paths are in places where trees and paths weren't before, and everything is looking like woods where there shouldn't be woods. But backtracking doesn't help either. They are good and truly lost. Until they come across a tree that has jack-o'-lanterns instead of fruit growing off of it, with a black cat sitting at the foot. Esther calls out to the cat, and after giving her an acknowledging mew, the cat walks away, clearly leading them. At a loss for any better ideas, they follow the cat. They wind up at a house that is simultaneously old and very new. It looks like it was made out of medieval construction, but with modern windows and a modern chimney coming out of the thatched roof. A woman comes out of the old/new house and introduces herself as Aileen and invites them inside. The inside of the house is also a weird hodgepodge of what looks like old and new things. She explains that things aren't too linear around here. When asked where here is, Aileen says, "You're in a dream." Esther asks if this means they are asleep, and Aileen clarifies that no, they are inside the dream of Halloween. This is apparently not something a human is supposed to be able to do or a place they're supposed to be able to be. The dream of Halloween is its own world, but it is connected to our world. One way is through sleep, and the other is obviously through the actual day of Halloween, when the two worlds get close to each other, sometimes even close enough to touch. Presumably, this is what facilitated the Queen's ability to cross over. Aileen goes on to explain that the Queen has created a small bubble of frozen time, and essentially it's just Esther's neighborhood that is stuck in this eternal Halloween, since that is all the Queen currently has the power to do. Anyone not needed for her plan would have been pushed into a pocket of the dream, in other words, put to sleep. Hence all the unwakeable adults. But as long as they are in the fragment of the dream, they can never wake up. Sasha points out that children have been taken. Both her little brother and Esther's sister have gone missing. Aileen finds this concerning. She's heard stories of the Queen stealing children from our world to raise as her own, and these children spend so long in the dream, they forget what it was like to be human at all and just become part of the dream themselves. This is also when we learn the reason Aileen knows so much about the Queen of Halloween is because she used to be part of a resistance group called the Black Cats, and that the Queen is the source of all the false superstitions about black cats as a form of retaliation for the uprising. The revolution failed, and Aileen has been hiding in this part of the dream since. This is all obviously concerning information, so the gang determines they need to get out of here to save the kids before they get turned to more hordes of gross trick-or-treaters. But not before Esther's like, "Hey, you were absolutely that black cat that led us here, weren't you?" And Aileen waves this off, but also doesn't really deny it. The gang manages to exit the dream and eventually come upon the Queen's encampment. From a distance, they can see hundreds of cots with sleeping kids, being tended to by the weird trick-or-treaters, and in the center of the camp is a big pumpkin throne where of course they can see the Queen. They overhear her talking to Dan and Ed, basically confirming what Aileen had told them, that the Queen is going to make Halloween last forever, and that all these sleeping children are going to become her legion of weird trick-or-treater things. They notice as she's monologuing to the Truck Brothers that she's clutching a little black box. Come to think of it, she was holding that box the last time they saw her when Mr. Nathaniel was trying to hose her down. Whatever's in that box must be important, right? Otherwise, why would she never put it down? Luckily for them, Mr. Gabler wasn't always a dentist. They make a plan to steal the box, with the kids creating a distraction. It almost works, until it goes kinda sideways. Mr. Gabler gets captured and is now asleep like all the other adults in town. He did manage to toss them the box before being put out of commission, but they're on their own now. Oh no. It's time for Plan B. The kids rush in and opt for the new strategy of just beating the tar out of the Truck brothers. With the brothers at least temporarily laid up due to having a bunch of middle schoolers wail on them, the kids escape a safe distance and Esther opens the box. There's an orange moonstone in there and it glows when Esther picks it up, and that's when they realize, wait, something's wrong, but it's too late because the rock has put them all to sleep. It's Halloween evening and Esther is getting into her costume. Her parents are downstairs and tell her how great she looks when she's coming down. They don't mind that she's going trick-or-treating. She can go next year too. For some reason, she's got a weird rock in her hand, but she doesn't have time to worry about that. It's trick-or-treating time. But outside, it's not her neighborhood. It's a cliff overlooking the ocean with an enormous orange moon in the sky. She's freaked out, but then she turns around and she's back at her porch with her parents telling her to go out and have fun. Surely it was nothing. She heads out. The whole neighborhood has really gone all out, and everyone gives her loads of candy, but her bag never gets heavier or overflows. She finds Sasha crying. She's waiting for her mom, but her mom never comes. This isn't right. This isn't the way it's supposed to be, is it? Sasha asks. But why wouldn't it be? Everyone else is happy. It's Halloween. Except for a second, she's back at the cliff. She turns around. Sasha's gone. The streets are full of trick-or-treating kids saying it's the best Halloween ever. And it is the best Halloween ever. Content with her haul, she heads back home. She gets there and her dad asks, hey, aren't you gonna go out there and trick-or-treat? But that's what she was just doing, wasn't it? But it's Halloween evening and she's getting into her costume to go out. It's great, but there's this weird rock in her hand. Her grandma comes to take her door to door. She finds the big house that always has the elaborate maze out front, and the party for adults inside. Augustine is standing in the doorway. He thinks there was something wrong with the party, but it seems okay now. Him and Esther go upstairs to talk. She tells him she likes him, he tells her he likes her, it's very cute. But then she's back home again, and it's time to go trick-or-treating. Her new costume is so cool and definitely not supposed to be the glow cloud. I see you, Joseph Fink. All hail the glow cloud.
All hail the mighty glow cloud. All hail.
Anyway, she's holding that weird rock. She's sure she was just outside trick-or-treating, wasn't she? She'd just been talking to Augustine, right? Her mom asks, isn't she gonna go head out? And Esther tells her she's gonna stay in this year. She wants to try something new. She's ready to see what comes next. And this is what shatters the dream. I need tea. So Esther is awake again, but she's the only one. Gus and Sasha are still out cold. She goes searching for help and finds a party of a bunch of teenagers, including her older brother. Unlike the adults in an eternal sleep, the teenagers of the town are all in an eternal Halloween party, and are completely dead-eyed and absolutely no help. It's going to have to be Esther. She's the only one who can do anything. She's going to have to go and face the Queen head-on. She attempts to sneak back into the camp, but is caught by Ed Pumpkin, who drags her to the Queen. The Queen mockingly congratulates Esther on being the only person to ever escape the dream. But what's she gonna do now? There's nowhere to run. Esther threatens to destroy the moon rock, which would be a feat. It's a rock. And the Queen says as much. She also tells Esther that it isn't the source of her power, it's just an amplifier, but she can also use it to force Esther into the dream. So Esther changes tactics. Maybe she can't destroy the rock, but she might be able to use its power herself against the Queen. So as the Queen is trying to pull Esther into the dream, she fights back, and she's able to hold it off by concentrating on the idea that she does want to grow older and change. This seems to be working. For a bit. But the Queen is obviously a lot stronger, and she starts getting pulled into the dream, which is when a black cat attacks the Queen, because Aileen is here to save the day. This breaks the Queen's concentration for just a moment, and Esther realizes while she can't stop herself being pulled into the dream, she can drag the Queen in along with her. They're both in the dream now at the top of the cliff Esther kept seeing when she was in it before, with the ocean down below them. Seeing things turning not in her favor, the Queen attempts to strike a deal with Esther. The Moonstone is the only way back, but the Queen is using all her powers to keep Esther from leaving, so in order to get out, they will both need the other. The Queen tries to appeal to Esther by saying that really, they both want the same thing. Esther loves Halloween, doesn't she? It can always be Halloween, her favorite day. She'll even get her family back, and her friends, and she'll never have to get any older. She'll always be the perfect age to go trick-or-treating.
Esther thought about it. She really did. She thought about Halloween and about her family and about time. She thought about her mother and father looking older every year and what that meant. She thought about high school and then college and then whatever mystery lay beyond college. There doesn't have to be a downside here, the Queen spoke quietly and gently. You get to have the people you love, even that boy you like so much, and we both get to have Halloween forever. In these words, Esther recognized herself. She had wanted to go trick-or-treating against the wishes of her parents and Augustine, and so she had. Like the Queen, she simply hadn't considered not getting what she wanted. Her love of Halloween, that had seemed so pure, felt tainted by the selfishness that she and the Queen shared. Change is important. Change is good.
The Queen is still really laying it on thick. Even after Esther comes to this realization, she knows Esther doesn't want things to change. And Esther doesn't. She's afraid of change, and siding with the Queen would guarantee that. Yay. So Esther asks the Queen if the stone is the only way the two of them can travel back to the real world. And she confirms, yeah, it's the only thing that can do it. So Esther chucks it into the ocean. This sends the Queen into a rage. Her and Esther are trapped in the dream here forever. And while the stone might not have been the source of her power, as soon as it's gone, weird things start happening to her, until she's pretty much just a mist with a voice. A voice that's mostly telling Esther what a dummy she is for trapping them here. And how after finally being all, oh, change is good, now nothing can change because they're stuck here. Nothing will ever be any different. So Esther says, here's something different, and jumps off the cliff. She surprisingly does not drown, even though she's fully underwater, which is when she realizes it's not water, it's her. She sees her future laid out for her. High school, her friendships with Augusta and Sasha, college, and then after that, jobs and just growing older. Nothing she sees here is what the current 13-year-old her had planned for her future, but it also isn't entirely awful. It's only when she's willing to bridge the gap and grab the hand of her older self, accepting that she will grow up and change as necessary, that she escapes the dream. Kind of like how she escaped it before in the Halloween loop, just a little more intense. With the Halloween Queen sealed away in the dream, her spell is broken, and even the Truck brothers have to basically just go, well shoot, guess we lost, and shuffle off. Esther reunites with Gus, Sasha, and Mr. Gabler, and even manages to find her little sister Sharon among all the little kids who are now waking up. But there's a whole lot of kids here who need to go home. Luckily, Mr. Gabler is a dentist. And most of them are his patients, so he knows who to return them all to. Mr. Gabler gets to go home to his wife, Sasha and her little brother are reunited with her now awake mom, and Esther and Gus are alone. They get to have a cute moment and talk about their feelings in the real world. Bless them. When Esther gets home, her parents are livid, but then her teenage brother comes home clearly from being out partying, and they direct their rage at him, so she gets a bit of a reprieve. The book ends with a very Spielberg-esque kids on bikes type ending. The three main kids of the story talk and agree to stay friends in high school. And while Esther still likes Halloween, she's okay with this being her last year trick-or-treating. She wants to see what comes next. She's finally okay with growing up. So that's the Halloween Moon. Thank you for hanging out with me through that. I know it was a long summary, but this book manages to pack a lot of material into its 271 pages. And those of you that skipped the summary, welcome back, we missed you. Anyone who is actually interested in actively engaging in the media they consume will tell you horror is usually an analogy for something else. The zombies are really countercultural movements threatening conservative white America, over-consumerism, the horrors of war. The pod people are really communism, and Dracula touches on the fear of hot people who make you question the kind of stuff you're into.
I'm a sexy Dracula.
In the Halloween Moon, the horror is obviously not Halloween itself, it's change, and more specifically, it's growing up. And using Halloween as the vehicle of portraying this fear is actually kind of brilliant. An immediate obvious reason has to do with the autumn season in general, kind of like how autumn is the transition period between summer and winter, being that in between of middle school age is the transition of childhood into being a teenager and ultimately an adult, with winter symbolizing the death of childhood. I know, dramatic. So even while in this in-between, that's a fear looming around every corner. But this also makes it the perfect setting, since autumn is a liminal space of sorts, an in-between and ambiguous place, a lot like middle school, honestly. It may not be everyone's experience, but it was certainly the most confusing time in my life. But drilling down further than just autumn, there's Halloween itself as a metaphor for coming of age, specifically in regards to trick-or-treating. Jodie Pottle of Your Teen magazine had the following to say.
In its own way, trick-or-treating on Halloween can be seen as a metaphor for growing up. It begins with parents dressing up their kids in sweet and cuddly pumpkin or bear or candy corn costumes, and taking them to trick-or-treat at their neighbor's house. The next few years, parents help kids dress up as princesses or witches or ghosts or baseball players, and wait at the bottom of each driveway while their kids get the goods. Soon, kids are coming up with their own crazy, and sometimes inappropriate, costumes, and heading out with their friends, returning home laden with candy that parents begged them for. Some even forgo trick-or-treating, opting for a party at a friend's house instead. We simultaneously celebrate every step toward independence and mourn the children that needed us. We feel the tug of this contradiction even more strongly when they are teens. While we know that they need to grow up, we also can't bear the thought of them not being able to participate in the joyful innocence of trick-or-treating.
So then if trick-or-treating is a symbol for childhood, then Esther is trying to hold on to that childhood while her parents are forcibly trying to push her into adulthood. From the bat mitzvah ceremony that declares her a woman, in which the subject of her being too old for trick-or-treating is first broached, dovetailing into the day before Halloween when her parents put their foot down and say she can't go out this year, and maybe she should pick a grown-up way to celebrate, like going to the movies with her friends. Sidebar: you trick-or-treat however the hell long you want. Get that candy, damn the man. Anyway, back to me sounding scholarly. Augustine and Sasha almost served to be points flanking Esther in regards to maturity, with Sasha more rooted in practices aligned with childhood, and Augustine eager to prematurely, mature. On the one hand, Sasha is driven home from school every day because she's not allowed to walk home like Esther and Augustine, and she's also dropped off to go trick-or-treating with seemingly no qualms from her mother. Despite her being the exact same age as Esther, she doesn't get the stigma of being too old to trick-or-treat. On the other hand, we have Augustine. While never explicitly stated, he comes off as one of those kids who inexplicably figured out that Santa wasn't real when he was like 5 and has been jaded ever since. When Esther is trying to loop him into her plans, he's resistant. He doesn't want to go trick-or-treating. He doesn't want to get into costume. He doesn't want to be a kid. At one point in the book, before everything on Halloween night has gone completely sideways, Esther and Augustine spot a group of teenagers partying in the woods. Gus remarks about how fun it looks, and Esther does not at all share this sentiment.
Teenagers partying in one of the hidden spots in the bush, having their own Halloween, a Halloween she knew that she would one day have to graduate to, but that she didn't see the appeal of. Her Halloween was one of tradition, and of scary tales, and of a chance to look at the world as more magical than it is. The grown-up Halloween was just another night when a party happens, like any Friday or Saturday night. The thought depressed her. "Looks like a real good time," he said. "I can't wait till we get invited to stuff like that." "Really?" "Yeah, don't you want to see what's next? I always want to see what's next." "No," she said. "I never want to see what's next."
This theme of Gus rushing towards adulthood while Esther hangs outside of it is repeated later when Esther is trapped in the dream of the repeating Halloween night. In the second cycle of that dream, she goes to the house that has maze, decorations, and candy outside for children, and a party on the inside for adults. When she sees Gus there, he is standing with one foot inside the house, inside adulthood, while she is hanging outside it. Her fear of growing up and how intrinsically linked it is with Halloween and trick-or-treating is repeated through the text to the point that it is the bargaining chip the Halloween Queen uses to try and sway Esther to her side. She makes the promise that Esther can stay a child forever, that she won't have to ever face what's coming next, and specifically the Queen states that Esther would always be the perfect age to trick-or-treat, again linking it firmly with the idea of childhood. And this does almost get Esther. She's terrified of becoming an adult, but it's only when she rejects this and accepts the idea that she has to, at some point, change, that she gets free. First in the looping Halloween night dream, when she breaks the cycle by telling her mother she wants to stay in this Halloween and try something new, causing the dream to shatter, and then again when she jumps into the ocean in the dream she's trapped herself and the Queen in. When she sees her potential future, she almost swims away from it, but it isn't until she grabs hold of the older version of herself and accepts her future, that she ultimately is able to escape and break the spell, saving everyone. Hi, Salem. And honestly, this is a pretty important theme to explore, especially within literature aimed at this age group. Because growing up is scary, it brings all kinds of variables with it that you don't have to worry about when you're a kid, because there's, generally speaking, people there to watch out for you so you don't have to worry. Growing up means losing that and being on your own, and having to learn who you are when you don't have the people who are watching out for you around to inform your identity. Even as an adult, that's something that's still pretty scary. The world is kind of a nightmarescape. But the importance of this theme being discussed also brings me to something I brought up in the beginning of the video. And that's, while middle grade horror is something that is often dismissed because it's for kids, it's a very important addition to the genre as a whole, because of the ways it's able to tackle issues that kids of that age are going to be dealing with, but in a safe way. It allows them to navigate things that are frightening without leaving them totally on their own. When asked about the importance of middle grade horror, Malinenko, author of middle grade horror works Ghost Girl and The Disappearing House, had to say this.
"I think one of the biggest disservices we do to kids is assume that they can't handle things. Let the horror kids have their books. The thing I like about middle grade horror is that it's safe scary. I make a deal with my readers. I will take them into the dark, scary woods, but I will bring them back to the light. It is horror with heart and hope. I also think that horror is a good place to talk about deeper issues. I talk about grief and death and illness in my horror books. These things happen. Kids know this. We need to be honest with them, and truth be told, I think horror is honest. It trusts kids to make it. It knows that they will survive the night. And also, look, we all know as adults that someday a monster is going to show up in our lives. Horror teaches kids how to survive that monster.
Which is why stories like this are so important, and we really do the impact they make a disservice by being so quick to dismiss them as childish. After all, we were all kids once, reading Goosebumps and learning from them things like to fully consider a situation before diving headfirst into it, cooperation with people with differing opinions, and not putting on weird masks you find. And then in the inverse of the Halloween Moon, an upcoming Horror Diner episode, Something Wicked This Way Comes, taught us the dangers of being too quick to barrel into adulthood. And Scary Stories Tell in the Dark taught us to be afraid of basically everything, especially the original illustrations. And with that, I'm sure those cookies are cool enough to eat now, so let's grab one and I'll meet you back in the diner. It's like Halloween. Kind of. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you want to try making these? Have you read The Halloween Moon? Do you want to pick it up after we talked about it? Drop your thoughts on the book, the food, and what your favorite middle grade horror novel is in the comments below. Recipe, recommendations, and citations are all listed in the description. And hey, if you enjoyed your stay here, maybe you'd think about liking and subscribing to see what we cook up next. And if you want to go even further, we've got a Patreon. A lot goes on in front of and behind the camera to make these videos, and every little bit helps us keep the lights on in the diner and the gas on in the stoves. Patrons get fun perks like getting episodes early, access to the Horror Diner Discord, and possibly even exclusive cat pictures. And patrons of $5 or more get to be part of the Horror Diner Book Club, where every month you vote on a book for me to cover, and you can read along with me, and then I make an exclusive video on that just for you on Patreon. We've covered things like Bitterthorn by Kat Dunn, and We Used to Live Here by Marcus Clewer. You can find that linked in the description as well as links to where you can find us on Instagram, Bluesky, and TikTok. This has been the Halloween Moon. I've been Spooky Pie, and you have been amazing. Y'all come back now, you hear? We'll see if I get this whole thing with the witch hat on, or if it annoys me, or I throw it. It's blocking half my decorations. It smushed my bangs. Whatever. God, I hope this mic is better. Let's get this bread. I have 2 hours until Chainsaw Man starts. Like a bat in this thing. I have this on the whole time because it's really loud. It drips everywhere. Ooh! Oh my god, there's bubble solution on the back of this too. It's on everything! Ah! Please hold while we experience technical difficulties. I made hot tea even though it's so hot in here, so I dumped like 3 handfuls of ice in it. I never know what to do with my hands. Oh, he's having a sneeze. Don't drink my tea, okay? I hope everyone appreciates the new microphone. Can't tell because of the lighting, but it's the same color as my hair, actually. Anyway, do we like the lights? I think they're kind of fun. Kind of like how autumn is the transition period. Oh, he's looking at me so cute. Best boy. Oh my goodness, look at those paws. Hi. Hi. Oh. Goodness. Goodness gracious, hi. Oh yeah? Oh, okay.